Alrighty, direct season again. This is Dr. Yakman here with another Nintendo agenda based on the upcoming direct that we're supposed to have in June. I think this is going to be a big one. I don't want to get the hype up too high, but I think this is big because a lot of people are already saying this is the last Switch dedicated direct. Nobody said that. A lot of people think that. A lot of people believe that. You can believe whatever you want. I think there will be more directs in the future that will be mostly focused on the original Switch. I do believe it's a big one because there's a little bit of that in there near towards the end of its life, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. I don't like to look at it that way because I do think that there will be, even when the next gen Switch comes out, there will still be plenty of sales left in the lifespan of the current Switch. And that's something that's kind of like a big deal because they've already given projections for what they plan to sell of the current Switch this fiscal year ending March 2025, and it's I wouldn't say ambitious, but it's kind of, given the sales that we've got right now and given the titles that they haven't even announced for the latter half of the year, another reason why it might be a big direct. It's kind of a deal, that they have to have some big stuff coming in order to sell that many. I think the projected sales are 13 million in this fiscal year, and this is a year going into a possible transition to the next system. So I think it's a big deal because of the upcoming transition. It's a big deal because they've got they haven't shown anything for the latter half of this year, so it's kind of a big question mark. It's a big deal because haven't had a direct in a while, and it's kind of like people are waiting. This is the E3, not E3-ish direct or whatever. Also, they told us about it a month ahead of time. They also told us that there would be no Switch 2 stuff in here, so I'm not even going to really talk about that at all. But they did. Furukawa himself said that there's going to be a direct in June. It was already a given, but they announced it. That's a month ahead of time. That's kind of crazy. Or maybe it was even more than a month. Regardless, it was a big. Usually they don't announce it until like it's a day or two away. And sometimes, they've gone without even having it when everybody thinks that they should have already had a direct. All that aside, I'm not going to talk about the stuff that we already know about. There's a bunch of games from third parties. There's a bunch of games and I think they're important. There's a bunch of rumors out there. I'm only going to focus on the ones that I have pictured in this video. This is kind of a slideshow of what I think might happen. And I guess we'll get started on it. Yes, I believe it. Even if it's just a port, I don't think it'll be a new game. I think it'll be a port of a game that's already pretty perfect in the franchise. And obviously, when Nintendo does things with their online, like the F-Zero 99, which I think it's got a pretty, I wouldn't say like huge following, but I would say that it has, they can see the numbers. They can see that people are still playing, people like it. It's just a cool concept anyway, the 99 games. But I think they got a feel for it. And plus, this isn't a GameCube where it's like at the time that they released F-Zero GX, it was like less than 20 million sold. This is the Switch, which is well over 120 million, probably over 140 million at this point. So this, in my opinion, has to happen. If they don't, I think that's a missed opportunity. I mean, yeah, they could show off the graphics of a new system with something like F-Zero. Cool, whatever, but it's a missed opportunity if they don't do this. Here's another port, and a lot of people have already rumored and talked about that there's going to be a lot of ports, GameCube, but here's a 3DS one. Kid Icarus Uprising. I think that it deserves a HD port, or however you want to call it, to the Switch. Now, what sells big time on the Switch? Impossible ports of older games, just ports. They sell well. Classic games, game compilations, remixes of older games. The classic, and although this game isn't really classic, it was only just basically a generation away on the 3DS, but still, these are the kind of games that you expect to have come out even when the next system is announced, even when the next system is already launched. They'll still, the 3DS was still supported for almost 2 years after the Switch came out, which is more than I can say for something like the Wii or the Wii U. It was probably the only major system for Nintendo when the Switch was out was the 3DS. The Wii U had already, and likewise, the Switch should still be going even when the new Switch or the next gen Switch comes out. And this would be this would be one of those kind of titles that would be like, wow, okay, cool, yeah. Here's my next one. Yes, patent rumors and all this other stuff. We know that there's something happening in the Pushmo universe on the back end. Maybe they might get the same kind of feel, go with a theme here with the 3DS. This was a 3DS franchise, but it's something that I think that there was a plan to do something on Wii U, but of course that didn't happen. Bring it to Switch, whether it's a port of the older games or a new game in the franchise. It'll give us something relatively new without it being like a huge title or like something that like people will be like, oh, they should have waited for the next Switch on this one. You know what I mean? That's perfectly fine on the current Switch. And also fitting with the 3DS theme of Kid Icarus Uprising and something from the Pushmo universe would be, there's rumors going around, and I do believe it would be a great feature if they bring back Street Pass for Switch, or the next Switch, I should say, and themes, just stuff that the 3DS had that the Switch didn't have. Alrighty, this has been rumored for a long time. Some people are saying, oh, well, they should wait for the next system and go all out and blah, blah, blah. There's a possibility of that, and I am completely... Nintendo likes to sit on games. From what I've heard, both of these, whether it's a compilation or they're sold separately, these were already done on the Switch, but they just never brought them out. Without having a new Zelda or something Zelda this year, and they've already said that they weren't going to have downloadable content for Tears of the Kingdom, this would be a good fill-in, And again, somebody might say, oh, well, this should be for the next Switch because, that could show it off or whatever. And plus, they did it on the Wii U. Well, yeah, they did do it on the Wii U. And that would make this that much easier and simpler. And we already heard the rumors that it was already done, or both of these, whether it's again, compilation or separate, they were done. And I think this would be a good time to do that. Filler content until the next system comes out. Me, a all-out, full-on remake of a Zelda game would be Ocarina of Time / Majora's Mask, maybe together, separate, who knows. That, I think, would be deserving of a gigantic, from the start, from the ground up remake, remaster, however you want to put it. And that might actually, in my opinion, that would be the best thing for them to do, Zelda next, at least as far as a port goes, or whatever. There's still the possibility with something like a Zelda 99 that's kind of like, what was that, the 4 swords, but instead of it being 4 swords, it'd be like 99 swords or something silly like that for their next online game, maybe, possibly. I don't know. That's I'm just throwing that out there. That's just a crazy idea. But yeah, I think that these would be good filler games up until the big holiday release, which, elephant in the room, is Metroid. All right, here's another one. They might need something Mario. Now, there's been the big rumors of a new Donkey Kong game coming, and I'm not saying that it's not, but maybe they might save that for the next system. It still could come out on this system, and maybe that is their big holiday title, is a Donkey Kong game. But me personally, I think they've had a remake of Metroid 2. They had a remake of the Game Boy Metroid and Zelda. They should have a remake of Super Mario Land. It's very unique. It's different. It might be more up some people's alley than Super Mario Wonder was. And it's certainly different enough. And plus, it's a older game, so, they could go all out. Some people have said, what about, 3D Land, a port from 3DS? Possible. Or maybe a 3D or a Super Mario Land collection, because you got, of course, Wario, especially if he's might possibly be in the next movie, the next Mario movie. That might be a thing. Who knows? I don't know. We don't know. But I think this game, Metroid 2 got a remake, and Link's Awakening got a remake. This one should get a remake. And it is a small game, don't get me wrong. It was one of the first games, or a launch game on the original Game Boy. It was a small game, not very many levels. So they could compile this together with Super Mario Land 2 and 3, possibly. I know that they already have that on the Switch Online in their original forms, but, maybe it could be like an All-Stars, Super Mario Land All-Stars, where it's, revamped graphics. Maybe even make it look cartoony like this. They've already proven themselves with the Wario, what was that Wario game that was on Wii, the Shake It or whatever? That was all so fun, and the graphics were great. It was like playing a cartoon. And look at this. This is like a cartoon. It'd be great to play it like this, But that's just an idea. I think that they will have something either Mario or Donkey Kong related, just to whatever, if they don't think that Metroid is going to carry them enough or whatever. But it'll be, whatever it is, it's going to be small, whether that be Donkey Kong or something like this. And I talked earlier about Switch Online. Furukawa keeps bringing it up, that the Switch Online is a very important thing for them to communicate the next system, which to me, they're going to have to add value to the Switch Online. They're going to add more games to the service, obviously, and possibly more systems to the service, although I don't think on the Switch yet. It'd be cool if they did something like Virtual Boy and then have a headset that you could put up to your face and then play Virtual Boy games that way. That's a whole other idea, and that might be something they save for the next system, especially if there's any kind of VR stuff with that. Going off on a crazy tangent, don't want to do that. But again, they do want to communicate the transition, and they want to keep the users active, so they're going to add more games. And I have some suggestions coming up for games, but I also have the idea that I already presented before, another 99 game. And then this will be a game that would continue from F-Zero 99, once they, who knows if they get rid of that. They already got rid of the Mario one, the 35. That kind of sucks. I wish they'd bring that back. Maybe that's their way of bringing back Super Mario Land. They do it that way, but they do it with 99 since it's a smaller game. Who knows? I don't know. We don't know. But I do think that they will add a new kind of cool game to the online service that will continue on into the next system, and that they will add more classic games to the service. And again, this is to say, hey, continue to purchase the service, or purchase the or not purchase, but re-up every year. They usually have something big to entice you. And they Furukawa always points out that the Switch Online is what they plan to use to really push people who are active users on one system to the next system. So during the transition. And a part of that could be, rare games. There was that picture of the rare games that had already come out on the Switch Online service. That, a lot of that had to be because of Microsoft allowing it. GoldenEye, all that other stuff. But also the stars, they suggested there was more games. It'd be cool if they got Killer Instinct. It'd be cool if they had Rare Replay. It'd be cool if, the rumored games that were already coming from Xbox get possibly revealed in this next Direct. And alongside that, the Switch Online, they would have more games. I would love the arcade versions of Killer Instinct and Killer Instinct 2. Would that happen? I don't know. That's kind of crazy and up in the air. Certainly Microsoft and Rare were open to it when they did the 1-Up arcade of that, but it didn't say Ultra 64 on the 1-Up arcades of it because that's Nintendo, and so they had to cut that aspect of it out, which I think would be cool if they just kept that in there. Whether it's like Switch Online arcade version of, but knowing Nintendo, knowing Rare, knowing Microsoft, knowing the situation that we have now, it'll probably might be just Killer Instinct and Killer Instinct Gold or something. But maybe the newer Killer Instinct game that came out on Xbox One years back, maybe that could be ported over. Who knows? I don't know. We don't know. I keep saying that. All right. Trying to move along. Also along the side of Microsoft, whether it's the mobile version of it or an older version of the game, certainly not the new one, because that would probably take too much work to scale down. But we do know that in Texas there is, and probably pretty close to where Retro Studios is, and there are former employees working there with Activision, probably with Microsoft at this point, working on Call of Duty games it's probably for the next gen Switch, obviously, but maybe it's for the current Switch too. Year after year, we always heard these rumors, and I think it's just a no-brainer. They should do this. As well as some other games that Microsoft now basically owns. So, and speaking of other third-party surprises, you got Madden. I do think we should get a Madden game. I am not a big fan of a lot of third-party games or these kind of third-party games or Madden or sports games or whatever, but I don't know if it's maybe EA is doesn't want to waste their time with it in the past, but now they can't ignore that giant user base, and they can't just not bring Madden. The only other system that they've done that before in the past too was Dreamcast. The Switch is like the opposite when it comes to sales, the opposite of Dreamcast, and it makes no sense. And if anything, just like the MLB forced Sony to make the show for other systems, NFL should force EA to make Madden on all available, especially top selling systems. That's just a no brainer. And I think it'll show like maybe a shift as we go into the next generation, that third parties are like, oh yeah, we want, a user base here that will go to the next one, so that when we bring out the next games for it, I threw out this idea. I didn't put a picture up for it, but maybe another GTA game could come over besides that, the trilogy that they brought out. But that's beside the point, because the big elephant in the room, what everybody's waiting for, is Metroid Prime 4. Even if none of that stuff that I just mentioned happens, even if all they show is just trashy third-party reels of like throwaway games, I don't think that they will. I think there will be some good stuff, maybe some surprises and blah, 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 including what I said. But even if that's all they did, and they just showed like a clip and said something like 2025, but again, the reason why this is the elephant in the room is it supposedly it's done. They're just doing finishing touches on it. Is it going to be their big holiday release, or are they going to wait to make it a simultaneous release on this and the next Switch? Would that be too long? Would that be overshadowed by the other launch titles on the next Switch? Would that give them enough time to build up the hype for it? Is it something that they could, Breath of the Wild-ish kind of build up? Because let's be honest, a lot of people won't admit this, but the Zelda franchise was kind of really waning until Breath of the Wild came out. And Breath of the Wild being like past games from Nintendo when they do these transitions. I mean, they did it with GameCube to Wii with Twilight Princess, and from Wii U to Switch with Breath of the Wild. They released it on both systems, and the hype was for the original system that it was supposed to be on, but then more hype came because it was going to be also a launch title for the next system. And that could be how they play this, although I think that they would have already started to talk about it by now if they were really going to build up the hype for something like that. And maybe they don't think Metroid Prime, it could be, but they, on their end, especially the Japanese side, they would rather something like Other M or Dread sell better than Prime, because Prime is more of the Americanized version of Metroid. That's just a whole inside rivalry type thing that maybe Nintendo might have, or maybe I'm overblowing it, but I do think that there is a bit of that there. Maybe they don't want it to be, I don't want to say they don't want it to be successful. They obviously want it to make their money back, and they want it to sell systems, and they want it to be blah, blah, blah. But maybe they know that maybe it's not a strong enough franchise. But they could, if they did Breath of the Wild-ize it, they could turn a waning franchise into something that's like the Breath of the Wild version of the franchise. Because, I mean, think about it. Zelda was a good seller, but it was slowing, or not slowing, but it was each game that came out was selling less and less. Twilight Princess was really high. Ocarina of Time was high. The original Zeldas were high. But the rest of them were on their way lower, up and down between those releases. Breath of the Wild, though, it's like, that was like, wow. I mean, that was a major turnaround for the franchise. And maybe this could be the major turnaround for the Metroid franchise. But that's only if they play it like that. If they don't, then they will probably, it's either they're waiting for the next system and that it'll be simultaneously released on both, or it's done already on the current Switch and they might have a patch for it later on the new Switch. Maybe that's how they sell the next Switch, is they go, oh, okay, all those old games that you could play, now they're backwards compatible. That'll be one of the things that they reveal about the system. Not in this direct, but in a future direct or in future announcements or whatever. And they might use Metroid Prime as an example. That'd be cool. But we don't know exactly how they're going to do this. I think it'll be before the end of this year. I think it'll be possibly the big or one of the big holiday releases for the Switch this year, in its last year alone on the market. That could be a big deal for the franchise. Some might say they should definitely wait for the next system, but like if the game is already done on the current system, they need to, even if they were going to do a simultaneous on both systems, like wait for this one to come out in 2025 on both, that might be a little dangerous. I think having the holiday season alone for it on a Switch in its 8th year, that's going to show some awesome strength and momentum for Nintendo going into the next gen. And, I think it'll come out before the end of this year. But, some might argue that they'll wait. I think it probably would be a mistake to wait. And if the new system was coming out later on this year, that would make sense. And if they were already hyping Metroid Prime 4 last year around this time, then that would make sense if they were going to Breath of the Wild-ize it. But I don't think they are. I don't think they will. I think they're just going to let it be alone as a big holiday release. Those other titles, a potential Super Mario Land or Donkey Kong, a potential Pushmo universe type game, Kid Icarus Uprising, and all the other games that I already mentioned before, Zelda and F-Zero, those would be ports of older games. This is the new one. This is the new one. There's my hand there. So I think this is the one that is going to be their big holiday release. I could be wrong. They might have something else big. There might be another big third-party game. Certainly Call of Duty will be big if it comes to the current Switch, even if it's like a really bad port. I don't think that it would be, but even if it's like a smaller port of an older game or something like the mobile one, what is that one called? Warzone? I can't remember what it's called because I don't follow Call of Duty. But, I think this will be their big holiday hit. And yes, in the 8th year of the Switch, and yes, that might be cutting it fine, but who knows? Might be a turnaround for the franchise. I would hope so, because Metroid is my favorite franchise. That's why I've talked about this one so much. As far as this video goes, because man, I think that is the elephant in the room. Like, what's it going to look like? I think, given how Metroid Prime Remastered looked, I think it's going to look great. I think it's going to be awesome, even on the current Switch. And then with a patch on the new Switch or upscaling or whatever it might have, maybe that's built into the game, or the last couple of major releases from Nintendo that is built into it, and they're working on patches for the older games for backwards compatibility with the next Switch. That's system selling right there, because there's a lot of great games on the Switch, and this might be the last big great game on the Switch. I'll tell you, Metroid Prime Remastered is amazing. I'm still playing through it, and I don't want to go off on my own tangent, my own opinion or whatever, but here's the last part. And Metroid Prime 3 Corruption and Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, maybe together. Maybe it's just the port of the Wii one upscaled a little bit. Maybe they're remastered a little bit too. Probably not to the degree of Metroid Prime the first one remastered. I doubt that, because that was a pretty polished game. But certainly the new controls, although they were kind of new for Wii, but I like the gyro aiming even better than I like the Wii remote aiming back on Metroid Prime Trilogy and Metroid Prime 3. So this would be something that would be a shadow drop or something that would be coming very soon, whereas Metroid Prime 4 would be the holiday release or delayed until the next system. I think it'll be the holiday release, the big October, November game. So we'll see. Thanks for watching, and those are my predictions. Those are my ideas out there for what Nintendo would do for the next Direct. We'll see.